My name is Oleksandr Kirsanov. I go by Sasha. I'm a graduate student at East Carolina University Brody School of Medicine, and I work in a lab of Dr. Chris Geyer. We study male reproduction, and we're specifically interested in spermatogenesis, which is the development of male germ cells. And my project was largely focused on understanding the molecular and cellular mechanisms that regulate the early germ cell development, and also identifying new contraceptive targets in these germ cells. Germ cells are very interesting things. They're unique in their development, and our research is focused on understanding what makes a germ cell and how it's developing from the very beginning, which is a stem cell, all the way to sperm, and how we can identify targets along the way of this developmental process, and how we can manipulate that in a, again, reversible way to create new male contraceptive drugs. What are the challenges that are currently in our field and in general in male contraception? Well, of course, the underfunding of this area of research is fairly obvious, and I think maybe it's more obvious to me and people who work in the field than to general public. But that's something that has been growing, and MCI, of course, is being absolutely crucial in funding all of these projects and bringing us closer to developing different contraceptive drugs that can be used by a variety of people with different needs, from short to long term. And of course, these projects sort of become, they come up sometimes very unexpectedly, which is kind of like my project started. We saw a few things in some of our data that could potentially lead us to investigating new targets for male contraceptive compounds. And this happened. And again, MCI was very crucial at identifying the issue and really helping us to get to where we are now. So how did I get to where I am, and what motivates me? I think I always wanted to be part of medicine one way or another. My dad is a medical doctor. My mom is a professor in a medical school teaching biochemistry. So I was always surrounded by this biomedical kind of environment. And what led me to where I am is I wanted to be a doctor in a way that I wanted to be a medical doctor. And then once I got exposed to research, I really saw the potential of almost indirectly helping a large group of people. And contraception has become exactly that. I realized that by tapping in this potential large market, and how many people that can benefit from, how many families can benefit from identifying new contraceptive drugs, that really pushed me to continue working in this field. And that's one of the reasons why I will continue working in reproduction after I graduate here in a couple of months. Is again, the MCI sort of brought the contraception world and reproduction in general to my radar in more ways than I can really think. So it was that's what drives this, is a willingness and interest in helping large groups of people just by doing research. What are the things that I'll be doing after this and after I'm done? Again, hopefully in a couple months, I should be defending my dissertation and going on further. So it's very interesting. Again, I have to kind of take a step back a little bit. Is when I got this fellowship, I was talking to Logan and Heather about different ways I can continue this research. And also, they were very instrumental in helping me identify a network and collaborations with people. And this what kind of led me down the path of reproduction. And my interest now lies in a more broad way of reproduction and more aspects of reproduction, including, of course, contraception. So my future research will be focused on a little bit more on a female side of things. I'm going to be joining Carlos Gardia in NIHS, and we'll be studying placental biology and placental development, pathologies associated with placenta. And the motivation is to get experience and expertise in female reproduction, and having both sides of the field available and have knowledge about both sides, I think will really drive a proper train of thought on how to benefit both of them. MCI helped me reach my research goals. It's really amazing of how things turned out. I never expected this to happen, and once I got the fellowship, it really opened a bunch of doors in terms of collaborations. Again, in terms of network has become just unbelievable. I got to talk to so many great people in different aspects of research, from the government, regulatory, industry, academia. Again, it's huge thanks to Logan and Heather for connecting me with all of these people. And it really brought out the best of me to do as well as possible. And it really highlighted the research in our lab. And it also brought up the idea of male contraception to light, especially in our university and in the area where I live. I started talking more about it. People got more interested, asking more questions. So I think in a way, it's spreading the word. It's getting this fellowship also helped educate people who are not familiar with this concept and with this research, and to really pay attention to significance of it. Some of the reactions that I got from talking about my research were very interesting. A lot of times it's just people not aware that there is a missing piece to this whole concept, that there is no available male contraceptive drug. And it's sort of, everybody kind of feels like, oh, it's all been figured out. We have women who are using contraceptive methods, and their primary we'll call them family planners, because most of the burden falls on a woman in terms of contraceptive compounds. So it was very interesting to see people kind of have this opened eye and kind of have a almost like a light bulb in their head, where they never thought about this concept and never been aware of this. And overall, it was always a very positive feedback on our conversations, because it was almost like a survey, unintentional survey, where I would talk to them and I would ask simple questions like, hey, do you know about this? Or how do you feel about this? And it was overwhelmingly positive experience and positive response. So I was very happy about that. We see more and more men statistically being interested in this idea, and more women being interested in sharing the burden of family planning. So I think the things that we can do is advertise it more, have more larger organizations taking part in this, be it research organizations or foundations, and virtually anything that can bring it into light and have a lot of men and women. And in general, people have to know that this research is ongoing and this is being pushed, is being funded. And hopefully that will also in a way bring more funding in here, but also will educate men that maybe don't know about these options and don't know that they may come. And really, I don't think it's going to take as much convincing as a lot of people think. I think that men will do it, and for the most part, I really think most of my friends that are men that I talk to are on board. They keep asking me about this all the time. It's like, so when is this going to happen? When? And unfortunately, the answer is always, we are working on it. Some of the misconceptions that exist about male contraception that I've kind of heard, or somebody told me, is for the most part, is that, again, it's all figured out. Like some people think it's done. They see some Facebook posts or news articles on maybe not on very reliable news outlets regarding different methods of contraception, and that I always get questioned regarding hormonal contraception, and a lot of the times people really do not understand what that means. So it's really most of it is not really a misconception. It's mostly lack of exposure and lack of knowledge about the topic. And I've been trying to be better at explaining things to my friends and to people I meet about what we do, a little bit more of a simpler terms, maybe, which it primarily because I understand that we work on it every day, and sometimes things become sort of mundane and normal, and the language becomes very normal when you talk to peers about this, and then you bring it up to somebody who works outside of science, and you can get to a point where you start getting a little bit into the weeds. But yeah, I think sorry, I went on tangent. Yeah, the misconception again is it's all about not properly understanding what it is, and I think it's our fault. I think it's 100% our fault for not having proper resources. And again, MCI is great about it. Their website is fantastic because you can really go in and get a simple explanation of what is being done and why it's being done, where a lot of times when you go on the news and see the news articles, you run into a problem where maybe not all of the information is disclosed. Maybe it's not written by a scientist or a science communicator, and it gets to the point where some of the critical information is missing. So I think that's another thing that we can be better at. What are the implications of our research, and how my research specifically will influence the development of new contraceptive compounds? And yeah, it's an interesting thing. We again started this project very unexpectedly. We always worked on differentiation, which is spermatogonial differentiation, which is like the early stages of germ cell development. If you divide the whole process into mitosis, meiosis, and then spermiogenesis, which are like three big parts of development of male germline. We study the mitosis, so pre-meiotic events. So everything that happens before meiosis, this is our main focus. And what is interesting about these cells is that they do not, they are proliferative, which means they divide, they make their population larger, but it's not to the extent of the sperm, because by the time you get to sperm, you have millions and millions and millions of cells, where here we're looking at thousands. And in a idea of how to inhibit certain things in certain cells, well, if you have, we'll just make a ballpark number, right? 1,000 cells versus 10,000 or 100,000 cells. It's much easier to affect 1,000 cells before they get to that point where just many more of them. So there's just less targets, cellular targets, that we need to affect. That's one thing. And another thing is these cells are located on the outside of the blood-testis barrier, which is a barrier that creates this immunoprivileged area where sperm can develop properly. So being able to target these cells prior to crossing this blood-testis barrier allows us to make a compound a little bit simpler, perhaps, and it also crossing the blood-testis barrier is very challenging. To deliver drug across that barrier, you need different technologies and delivery methods. In theory, it would be much easier to target cells that located are outside the blood testis barrier. So that's more of a scientific implication of what can we do and what we are trying to do to identify these targets. In terms of general implications, of course, it's identifying new compounds that will help, again, in theory, millions of people. Unintended pregnancies are through the roof. Our population is through the roof. Something has to be done about it. And unfortunately, it's not viewed as necessarily a problem. I guess no. It's not viewed as an urgency for some reason, and I'm still struggling to understand why. Primarily because our population leads to so many problems, right? Poverty, separation of classes, pandemics, right? So if we can provide people with an option of how to reduce this or better plan the family and realize that we can, if all of us help together, we can get to the point where we have a sustainable lifestyle. So hopefully this will bring us, it's not a direct link from spermatogonial differentiation to helping millions of people, but I think working towards it is connecting these two things. It's a very long road, but I think labs like ours and other places that MCI funds and just in general people who work on contraception are making these small steps to really bring these two points together. How can someone know that male contraceptive is right for them? Well, I think it goes back to the point that you have to have multiple ways of male contraception. If you have multiple ways, you can because we're not going to have one pill or one drug for all. It never works. You have to have a variety. That's why we have a variety of everything. We have a variety of phones. We have a variety of food. We have you need more ways. And to say that how can we know that this is right for us? I think first we need to identify the variety and then present the population with this variety and then educate them on what is better for them and then let them choose. Ultimately, it will be up to them, but without proper information and without proper diversity in contraceptive compound, I think this choice for them is nearly impossible. So it's on us to give them that choice.